Happy Lag BaOyim. Good morning, this Friday, May 16th. You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. This is your weather enthusiast podcaster, Simcha Lefton. We have quite a remarkable day on tap for today, and we also had an amazing day yesterday. We're going to go over the accuracy of yesterday's forecast at the end of this episode, but for today, we have something unbelievable taking place across southern Indiana, southern Illinois, the southeastern portions of Missouri, and portions of Kentucky. It's just something very remarkable where we have a level 4 out of 5 severe weather risk. And the Paducah, Kentucky National Weather Service tells us that there will be a triple point for real setting itself up this afternoon in all likelihood, somewhere between the southeast Missouri and southern Illinois to southern Indiana area. Some other indicators hint at the possibility of it including northern Kentucky as well. But this is something which is not really seen on the actual weather map because it's not part of the larger synoptic weather setup, which features the main low pressure system continues to be well into the upper Midwest. But there's a whiff of a new low pressure system that will be developing across that area. When you combine that with the warm front, which initially is going to be a dry front between dew points in the 40s, dew points in the 70s, that front separates the two. That's a north to south oriented front. But that then becomes an east-west oriented front this afternoon, tells us the Paducah, Kentucky National Weather Service, and it basically starts to take shape more of like a warm front. Right around there, that's where we're going to see the triple point for this afternoon. Explosive thunderstorm development, and initially the main threat could very well be tornadoes. The main threats of tornadoes, large hail damaging winds, those are all the main threats initially. Eventually, this is expected to develop into a squall line as we go through the day, but even then there still could be some tornadoes possible later on in the day. Now, we're going to come back to that and try to get some more details regarding this, but let's just go back to yesterday's episode, and we're just going to rate the accuracy because it was a short episode, easy to rate. Yesterday's episode, we mentioned that West Rogers Park high temperatures, it's right along the lake. We mentioned that temperatures could struggle to get into the 90s, but we clearly pointed out the Canadian high-resolution model forecasting temperatures to go into the low 90s for West Rogers Park, an area along the lake. High temperature in West Rogers Park, according to windy.com, hit 92 degrees. So we have 100% accuracy for that. The West Rogers Park precipitation, it was focused on West Rogers Park yesterday. Podcast mentioned that the Storm Shield app showing storms moving in around 5:45 p.m., but the main models showing 7 or 8 p.m. We also had some showing 9 o'clock p.m. This was right on target. The initial drizzle was observed around 6:57 p.m. and heavier rain moved in around 7:30 p.m. So this was right on target with yesterday's podcast. The O'Hare Airport high temperature yesterday broke a record. High temperature was 93 degrees, right on target with the podcast's general forecast of high temperatures in the low 90s for the Chicago area. O'Hare Airport thunderstorm moved in around 7:21 p.m. at O'Hare, which was we didn't specifically mention O'Hare Airport, but that was the podcast's expectation of afternoon or evening thunderstorms. The Chicago Executive Airport high temperature was 93 degrees. That further confirms the hot conditions forecast. And the Chicago Executive Airport thunderstorm was around 6:19 p.m., which also supports the forecast of afternoon and evening thunderstorm activity, which also occurred after 5:45 p.m. The St. Louis area, we mentioned that yesterday, and the observed high temperature at Lambert International Airport, 88 degrees. That was on target with computer model mentioned yesterday. Computer model is forecasting highs in the upper 80s. I thought temperatures would go into the low 90s at the airport. Upper 80s was mentioned, continues the accuracy. Much higher humidity was the thinking in St. Louis. Dew points actually went into the 70s. In some areas, dew points seemingly even went into the mid-70s. But at the airport, the official dew point taker, dew point hit 70 degrees. University City's high temperature was 89 degrees. Another support for temperatures in the upper 80s, and dew points over there went into the mid-70s. The Lambert International Airport, again, high temperature of 88 degrees, matches the podcast's forecast for the Lambert International Airport for yesterday. So overall, the podcast's forecast for high temperatures in both the Chicago and the St. Louis area was remarkably accurate. You don't really have to say remarkable, and I'll tell you why. But it even pinpointed the low 90s for some Chicago locations. And the podcast's forecast for afternoon and evening thunderstorms in the Chicago area was also accurate in terms of occurrence and general timing. The podcast's description of higher humidity in the St. Louis area was correct, as evidenced by the mid-70 dew points. So, now, the point of all this is something I think is very spectacular, and that is the ability that we've been blessed with nowadays to be able to forecast, make a weather forecast is something, to me, which is clearly divine. It's something which no person could really do alone. If you think about the enormous amount of work that's gone into creating these computer models, the number of years that just all of these things that went into it, from discovering the jet streams back in World War II, and then it's just, you could write a book, almost a whole set of encyclopedias and everything that's gone in to just making a simple forecast yesterday, and to have this information available to man is something which should not be credited to man, but it often is. It's not credited to man, it's credited to a higher power, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's something which I think we get to see the Yad Hashem more clearly when we have the forecasts which are accurate. And in a different way, we get to see the Yad Hashem and the forecasts are not accurate. Either way, we get to see that. For those people who give credit to man, they get to see the Yad Hashem when the forecasts are not accurate. But the real amazement of all this, to those people who understand everything that goes into a forecast, and would realize, I think it's pretty clear that the wisdom is coming from a higher power, much higher than man. So this is something very remarkable to have just everything that came in, especially a forecast along the lake. People know that that's something which is very difficult. Going back to today, this episode is recorded on Reflections of Weather. And if you want to hear the remainder, I just cut it off. If you want to hear the rest of it, you can go to Reflections of Weather. You can go through all of the computer models. I go through all of the computer models on windy.com. But there's a much more time-efficient and even perhaps more effective way of doing this. And that is to stay in touch with the National Weather Service, because especially for a day like today, when the weather is putting people's life at risk for real with a potential tornado outbreak, people could also stay in touch with social meteorologist Bob Clubs on Patreon, where he does a phenomenal job of keeping people updated. But really, it's a tremendous stuff what he does, and has saved lives. We also a lot of times have Max Velocity, who's available on the YouTube channel, who also does. Sometimes he's able to give you warnings even before the National Weather Service does. So this is something, if you live in that area, you would want to keep in touch with that. That's much more productive probably than going through all of these computer models, especially with the one that I just started off with, which is a global model, which the European computer model, amazing accuracy. But when it comes to thunderstorms, tornadoes, and stuff like that, you would want to go with the higher resolution models. And even that, we would have to go over to stay in touch. This is stuff which will be unfolding in real time. Just to add one more thing in, which you could also hear on Reflections on Weather, is regarding a phenomenal Israeli heat wave, a one-day Shabbos heat wave that will be taking place tomorrow. Something totally amazing, as a 596 decimeter heat dome sets itself up across almost the entire country. You can look at windy.com on a weather map. You'll see temperatures going into the 100 teens Fahrenheit, mid 100 teens Fahrenheit Celsius. This is up to 46 degrees Celsius in some of those cities. Yerushalayim, your HaKodesh, Jerusalem, temperatures going into the low hundreds tomorrow. That's got 38 degrees Celsius, possibly even 39 degrees Celsius for there. And the way things go, you'll have a few areas reaching 40 degrees Celsius. The reason for that is because the heat is so dry. The sun is super efficient at heating things up within this heat dome. But not only that, but you also could see a larger range of temperatures than what normally would be forecasted in a humid area. So a forecast high of 101 for Yerushalayim means you could very well be seeing temperatures reaching 40 degrees in some localized spots in that area. Tel Aviv is by the Mediterranean. You'll see the wind flow is off the Mediterranean. For some reason, it doesn't look like it really gets that humid over there, but temperatures nonetheless do go into the upper 90s at least. But the hot spots, there's a few hot spots in Eretz Yisrael tomorrow, and Eilat is not really one of them, relatively speaking. It does go into the low hundreds there, but we have temperatures in the 100 teens occurring in 2 or 3 different parts of the country, and you could look on a weather map to see more details regarding all of that. And it's just for one day in response to a large heat dome of geographical heights 596 decimeter. In fact, that is the most intense heat dome in the world right now. Will be setting itself up right over it. It goes all the way into Western Africa as well, but it extends through Egypt and up through Israel, and temperatures reaching the low hundreds in the Gaza area as well. And we have other locations of super intense heat, but not necessarily does it coincide with a large heat dome in the Pakistan area and India. I wish everybody a wonderful day, and remember to stay up to date if you live in a severe weather-prone area. But the National Weather Service Weather Alert Radio from Midland seems to be a phenomenal purchase, but also the Storm Shield app, and make sure it's set to notify you right away when there are alerts, to notify you even when your phone is on silent. If it's not set to notify you, if your phone's on silent, it might not do so. But there's also the American Red Cross app, which is also excellent for tornadoes. I wish everybody a wonderful day. Stay safe and have a great Shabbos.